Morning, fellas. Everton are winners. 2-0 over Boreham Wood. Boreham Wood, whatever the pronunciation of that team is. But this was a valiant effort by them. Obviously, a National League side, so they were never going to be favourites going into this. And we had to win in order to save ourselves from embarrassment. And we did the job. It was a brace from Salomon Rondon. I mean, I haven't said that all season long. He doubled his goal tally in one game in comparison to his previous 14, which is just absolutely nuts. It's really telling you a lot about the output that we're getting from him, but he did play a key role in us getting the win today. Obviously, both of the goals. The first one was a nice little redirect from a John Joe Kenny cross. The Boreham Wood defender did not approach the ball. Rondon just had a little bit more hunger for it and he redirected it into the bottom corner, which was lovely placement. And then the second goal, well, Boreham Wood, their defenders did not go up for the ball and it just allowed, basically any Everton player to have a shot at it. It went past Richarlison and Rondon was on the end of it and he did the work. The keeper did save it, but the ball was over the line. If we just look at it from an analytical perspective, first half, I woke up 15 minutes into this game and I didn't miss one thing, despite the fact we had like 85% possession. I don't think you can really ever say that for any football club ever. But it was because Boreham Wood were playing such a deep line that you couldn't get through it unless you did something inventive. And in the first half, we were avoiding that. It's almost like we were intimidated by, all 11 players from Boreham Wood's 11 sitting back. And we just were too scared to try bust our way through. But you know what? In the second half, that mindset changed. We went back to that positivity. I had a bit of a suspicion that the conditions played into it because it was very dewy, it was rainy, and in previous weeks when it's been those conditions, that possession style we play, the quality doesn't really hold up well. It only holds up well when the ball is dry. Obviously, it's important to, do training in different environments so you're accustomed to that. But in the second half, we were much more sharper, much more direct. It seemed like we had a little bit more intent. We were looking to get the crosses in. We weren't turning back every time we saw like a brick wall ahead of us. We were trying to break through that instead of, trying to find another way around it. The bad thing for Boreham Wood, and this usually happens when you play a deep line, if you concede, you've got problems, because if that's your game plan, what's your fallback option? You don't really have one. So that was a little pitfall. And then also, if we made an error, a slight error, if we had a heavy touch or something, a Boreham Wood defender would kick it away, but they had no one up the pitch to start a play. It was always us getting the ball back, and that's why the possession numbers were so lopsided, because Boreham Wood just stood no chance. And I think when it was all said and done, they only had one shot on goal. You're not going to win games doing that. But you look, it was a valiant effort. Boreham Wood hadn't conceded a goal all FA Cup until today, and I think that's just representative of how strong they have been defensively. And sure, this has probably been their game plan going into matches where they are the underdogs, but it's very flawed if you start conceding. If we look at some very telling possession stats, you can see, well, you can't see, but I'm just reading here, 23 shots to 1, 10 shots to 0 on target, 80% possession, 46% pass accuracy for Boreham Wood in comparison to the 86% pass accuracy for Everton. We had nearly 700 passes and they had under 200. And their pass accuracy was below 50%. So when they're getting the ball, they're just giving it up straight away. And you're never going to win games of football like that. I think, look, when you look at it in the grand scheme, Everton had more quality. Everton were probably always going to win this game. If they left the door slightly ajar, like they did at halftime, there was potential for this to be an upset. But once we scored the first goal, thank you, Rondon, for doing that, because I mean, you've been shit all year, but you sort of came up clutch when we needed you today. Once he got the first goal, I think it was pretty much curtains. There was another goal that was ruled out, Richarlison. It came off his head into his lap where his arms were sitting. I'm not too sure if that can be considered a handball because your arms are technically by your side or alongside your body. Like, it is impossible to get them out of the way. That goal was overruled. That was just courtesy of a bit of luck. But regardless, I mean, I don't really know what Richarlison's supposed to do there. I don't really have a man of the match for this performance. I think everyone was pretty bang average. Anthony Gordon was probably the pick of the bunch if you want to pick someone, because he was looking to be aggressive, take some shots on the outside, and he was very daring. He would take players on. A lot of players, as I said before, would try avoid the contact and just go backwards and find another way through. But Anthony Gordon, he's got no shame. He will try bust his way through. He will try get crosses in where it doesn't seem like you can squeeze a cross through. He'll take a shot when there's one on offer. You know, that's the positivity I like to see. And that's what usually these youngsters bring. Obviously, we saw a couple glimpses from some other players. Nathan Patterson did get his first action in the first team, only to get yanked off at halftime. For Richie, who, mind you, had a very big impact in the second half. He was sort of playing like a centre mid role some of the time, pushing higher up the pitch to, you know, support those midfielders. But then when the ball got forward, you know, he was looking very dangerous. But we look at the youngsters, as I said, Mikalenko was relatively key as well before he went down. Obviously, the Ukraine solidarity carried over to this game as well, and that was lovely to see. You know, obviously, it's not over till it's over, and until then, you just got to show as much support as you can. Even though in the grand scheme, it's not going to do really anything. It's just more of an awareness thing. But yeah, as I said, it's wonderful to see that carrying over from last game into this game. It's, you know, a very surreal feeling, but it's very good that the Evertonians are, you know, well and truly supporting Mikalenko through this crisis. And then we look at the other youngsters throughout the game. Branthwaite obviously playing centre-back. That was good to see. And then, you know, I think Lampard emptied the bench at, you know, the 85th minute, where we saw a lot of under-23 talent come in. Louis Dobbin is probably the most notable name there, but we were getting a bit of action from guys we haven't seen play before. But that's good to see. I mean, that's when you want to be playing these guys, when you're playing a National League side, for God's sake. I mean, if there's any time you want to do it, it's against them, because there's a little bit more room, a little bit more wiggle room in terms of how many errors you can make. And I mean, it was the 85th minute. The game was all said and done, and yeah, I guess you could just afford to let them go out there and do some cardio. But the next game coming up is against Crystal Palace. I think it's at Selhurst Park, I think, given this was a home fixture. I think it's going to be a good game. Obviously, Palace are mid-table. In the league, they've been all right. They've been thereabouts. They've been average. They win some, they lose some. They've got some quality. They did beat us convincingly at Selhurst Park earlier in the year. Mind you, you know, that was with Rafa Benitez in charge. Obviously, different manager, but we haven't won a game away from home yet. So if it is at Selhurst Park, which, as I said, I think it is, you know, I think we could be in for a pretty big fight. And, you know, I think I have faith in us to win the game, but in saying that, I also think that it could be a game that ends up going into extra time. And I also think we could lose it as well, equally. But regardless, I think we've got to come out of the gate much more assertive than we were today. You know, you can't really afford to make mistakes and be as lethargic as we were in the first half. You know, for 45 minutes. Those 45 minutes against Palace could mean that we're down 2-0 at the half in comparison to this, where, you know, Boreham Wood got only one shot off for the whole game. So, obviously you're seeing a big difference in terms of quality. But yeah, I usually say that every game that we need to play the full 90. It's really simple. It's not rocket science. But hopefully we can pull through. And then semi-final at Wembley. Obviously, all the other big clubs still remaining in the draw have avoided one another, so you can almost bank on Man City, Chelsea, and Liverpool making the semis as well, which is going to make our life very difficult if we want to see Wembley final or FA Cup final action. But obviously, you know, something called the magic of the FA Cup exists, and we could be seeing upsets. You know, it's happened before with United and Arsenal, it could happen again. So here's hoping that we get through to the semis, and here's hoping that we get through to the final. But obviously, there's a long way to go in terms of that. But anyway, if you did enjoy this, drop a like, subscribe. We will be doing weekly reactions. We do have Tottenham coming up, and I'll probably cover that in just a few days' time. Well, not a few days, about 3 or 4 days' time, but we will be covering it. And for the rest of the season, we will be doing match reactions as well. So have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next video or live stream. Thank you.